Hi, this is Federico with Cuttle, and this video is going to be a quick introduction to the Weld and Score modifier, which is relatively new, and we know some of you have been curious about it, so we thought we'd give you an introduction with a couple of tips and tricks on how to use it. And let's get started with an explanation on what it does and how it works. So let me grab a blank canvas right here. So I'm going to explain the weld part of the Weld and Score first. So as an example, I'm going to grab a rectangle and a polygon, and I'm going to select those both, and I'm going to apply the Weld Modifier, also known as Boolean Union. So you might be familiar with that one. So when I apply that, what happens is that both shapes get kind of joined together or welded. So they turn into a single shape with a single outline that I can cut, as a single piece. So this is a very useful way of creating, more complex shapes based on simpler ones. Now let's apply the Weld and Score to the same two shapes. I'm going to grab the rectangle and the polygon, and now I'm going to select them both, and I'm going to apply the Weld and Score, which is here towards the bottom. And the results are going to be relatively similar, with the difference is that now the line that is overlapping here of the polygon, it's in blue. So what I got here is that both shapes got welded, but the shape that was on top, or the second one that I put on the canvas, gets its outline where the other shape was overlapping. And so what I can do with this is that I can cut the black line here, and I can score the blue one. And a score in general is when you apply less power on your laser. So instead of cutting all the way through the material, you end up kind of highlighting the line, kind of burning it in. So I actually went ahead and cut this example, and just to show you. So as you can see, I have the shape. It was a single outline. If I look at the back, I can see it's a single one. But then I get this line that highlights that polygon. And so that's just like the very simple example with two shapes. And this becomes really useful when you use it with text. So let's make an example that has text. So I'm going to do something quick. I'm going to grab a circle. I'm going to make it about 2¼ inches in diameter. I'm going to show you another modifier here called the outline stroke. That's kind of useful for when you want to make a ring. I'm going to make it about 1/4 inch. So far I just have a ring, but then I'm going to grab some text. So I'm going to use the connected text. I'm going to place it right here. I'm going to change the alignment to center, and I'm going to change the vertical alignment to middle. And then I'm going to betray the fact that I live in California by writing the word awesome. And I'm just going to size it so it kind of fits there in the circle. So let's put it up a little bit. So here is the idea. I want to weld the letters to the ring on the outside. Let's make it a little smaller. So I want to weld the letters, but I don't want to lose some of them if I weld them all together. So let's weld them to see what happens. So if I just apply the Boolean Union, you'll see that the A and the E kind of disappear. And that's not great. So I'm going to delete that Boolean Union, and instead I'm going to apply the Weld and Score. So I'm going to select it, go to Modify, and apply Weld and Score. So as you can see here, I get a similar result. I get the letters welded to the ring, but then in blue, I get the outline of those letters that otherwise would have disappeared. So let me show you. I actually went ahead and cut it. So as you can see, I scored just that blue section. So it lets me read the letters, but I also end up with a single piece. As you can see, when I look at the back, it's a single piece. So it's really nice to have those little scores that make the things more readable. So those are like the two kind of big ways to use it. But I'm going to show you an additional tip, which is kind of fun for when you're not using this kind of font, like a script font. So I'm actually going to duplicate this one. So, and now I'm going to change the font that I'm using here. So let's go here in the inspector. I'm going to select that connected text, and I'm going to try this one. It's called Notable. So I'm going to have to change a couple of things here. So I'm going to start by making it a little smaller, so it fits where I want it. Something like that. And so as you can see, what happens with this kind of font that is not a script font, so it's not necessarily optimized to be completely connected, some letters kind of get lost. Like the A and the W are just this kind of, I mean, it's an interesting design element, but sometimes you actually want it to be more readable than that. And then, the W, it's attached here to the E. The A to the W is just like a single long thing. And the M and the E are just also like a kind of weird block. So there's a cool way to fix that. So if I go and select the connected text, there is an option down here called welding. And so if I click on the different options, there is one that says weld individual letters. That is not the default. So I'm going to select that one. And so what that one does now with the Weld and Score applied is that the individual letters get that, that additional blue line that I can use as a score. And so the A doesn't get lost. So we get that with the other one. But now the A and the W also give me that additional line here. And look at the connection between the S and the O and the M, and of course the M and the E. So that option, that particular one right here for welding individual letters, it's useful for when you are not using script fonts. And I went ahead and made a version of this one. I should have thickened the font perhaps. But as you can see, it's readable. And the A and the W are nicely separated. I have a single piece. And I get that line there, and I get the line and the E. So these are just a couple of examples on how you can use the Weld and Score modifier. I hope you think they're awesome and you can incorporate them in your laser cutting workflow. Thank you so much for watching.